The night was cold and the ruins were silent except for the sound of broken walls falling apart. The air smelled of dust and blood, the signs of a war that had ended hours ago. But for her, the nightmare had only begun. The alien girl lay weak, on the cracked ground, her hands tied with rough wire, her legs bruised from the soldiers who had dragged her here. She was not placed in this ruined city by accident. She was bait. Her people had abandoned her, leaving her behind as a sacrifice. Somewhere in the shadows, the monsters waited. Everyone knew about them, the beasts that prowled the dead zones. They came when the stars hid behind the clouds, glowing eyes moving like fire in the distance, sharp claws ready to tear apart anything alive. Her people had always used prisoners as bait, hoping the monsters would be distracted while the soldiers escaped. Tonight she was that prisoner. The silence pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe. Every heartbeat was loud, every breath shaking. She tried to move, but the wire cut deeper into her skin. No one was coming to save her, not her leaders, not her family. They had all decided she was useless. She wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in her throat. If she screamed, the monsters would come faster. If she stayed silent, they would still find her. There was no escape. A low growl rose from the darkness, echoing through the ruins. Her heart stopped. She turned her head slowly, and her eyes widened. Two glowing lights stared back at her. Not lights. Eyes. The monster stepped forward, its body black against the ruined walls. Its claws scratched stone as it moved closer, saliva dripping from its sharp teeth. She tried to push herself back, but there was nowhere to go. Her body trembled as fear swallowed her whole, and then she heard footsteps, heavy, strong, not like the careful, crawling sound of monsters. This was different. She froze. Another predator. Another danger. Out of the shadows, a figure appeared. Not one of her people. Not one of the beasts. It was a human. He stood tall, his shoulders broad, his face hard like stone. His armor was scratched, scarred by battles, and his weapon hung loosely at his side. His eyes did not glow like the monsters, but something about them was far more dangerous. They carried fire. The girl gasped. Why was a human here? Everyone said humans were wild, dangerous, unpredictable. Many races feared them. Some called them savages. Others whispered they were survivors, creatures who would fight until the last breath. But whatever he was, he did not belong in these ruins. Yet here he stood, staring at the monster that crept toward her. The monster hissed, its voice like broken glass. The human did not move. His boots pressed against the cracked stones as he took one step closer, then another. He stopped in front of the girl, blocking the monster's path. She wanted to warn him, to tell him to run, but her voice broke into a whisper. Go. Please. It will kill you. But the human did not listen. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying the creature. Then he spoke in a low voice, calm and steady. Come on, then. The girl could not believe it. He was inviting the monster. He was calling it closer. The monster roared, shaking the ruins, and lunged forward. The human moved like lightning. His weapon flashed, a strange gun that spat fire and thunder. The blast tore through the air, striking the beast's shoulder and spinning it back with a scream. Dust exploded as stones cracked. But the human did not stop. He rushed forward, slamming his boot into the monster's chest. The ground shook. The girl's eyes widened in shock. She had never seen anything like this. Her people always feared the monsters. They always ran. But this human fought like he was born for it. He did not hesitate, did not show fear. His movements were sharp, brutal, efficient. When the monster clawed at him, he dodged and countered with a punch that cracked bones. When it tried to bite, he jammed his blade into its jaw. Blood sprayed across the stones. The fight lasted only minutes, but to her it felt like hours. When it ended, the monster lay broken, its glowing eyes fading into darkness. The human stood over its body, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. His weapon dripped with blood. The girl stared at him, her body frozen, She wanted to ask who he was, why he had come, but no words left her lips. She had no strength. The human turned his head toward her, his gaze heavy. For a moment, she thought he might leave her there, just like her own people had. But instead, he walked closer. His steps were slow, deliberate. He knelt down, and with a single pull he tore the wires from her wrists. The pain was gone, but her skin still burned where the metal had cut her. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice low, rough, but not unkind. She opened her mouth, but only a whisper came out. Why did you save me?" The human looked at her, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his words came, simple and sharp. "No one deserves to be left as bait." Her eyes filled with tears. She lowered her head, unable to stop the shaking of her body. She had expected to die here, to be nothing more than food for monsters. But now, standing in the ruins with the body of the beast at his feet, the human looked like something far more terrifying and far more merciful than anything she had ever known. In the distance, more growls echoed through the ruins. More glowing eyes appeared, watching from the shadows. The night was not over. The monsters were not done. But the girl no longer felt the same hopeless fear, because standing between her and the darkness was the human, and he was not afraid. The ruins fell silent again for a moment, the tension growing heavy. The girl's breath caught as the human lifted his weapon, turning toward the new threats. The monsters had found their prey, but this time, the prey was not helpless. This time, the prey was human, and that made all the difference. The ruins were not quiet anymore. Growls echoed in the distance, bouncing off the broken stone walls. The girl's heart pounded faster. The monsters were gathering. She could feel it in her bones. Her eyes searched the shadows and saw them. More glowing, dots moving closer, dozens of them. The one the human had killed was only the beginning. Her people had always said the monsters hunted in packs, that they would never stop once they caught the scent of blood. She knew they were right. The scent of death was heavy in the air now. Rising from the body of their fallen kin, the monsters would not forgive, they would not retreat. They would come in fury. The human stood tall in front of her, his broad back like a wall of iron. His weapon hummed as he reloaded it, the sound sharp and mechanical in the silence. He did not rush. He did not panic. Every movement was calm, steady, as though he had done this 1,000 times before. The girl trembled, trying to find her voice. You can't fight them all." Her voice cracked like glass. The human did not look back. He simply said, "We'll see." Something about those words silenced her fear for a moment. He said them like a promise, not a guess. The first monster leaped from the shadows, its claws slicing through the air. The human raised his weapon and fired. Thunder cracked, fire burst, and the beast fell screaming into the dirt. Another came from the side. The human spun, striking with his fist so hard that bones snapped like twigs. The girl gasped. He fought as if his body itself was a weapon, but more came. 5, 10, 15 glowing eyes moving as one. They circled like wolves. Careful now. They had seen his power, but they were many. They thought numbers would break him. The girl's hands shook. She wanted to crawl away, to hide, but her legs would not obey. She could only watch as the monsters closed in. The human stepped forward instead of back. His eyes burned in the night. "Come," he muttered. The pack lunged. The ruins exploded with chaos. His weapon roared again and again, each shot blasting through flesh and stone. He swung it like a club when the beast came too close, smashing jaws and cracking skulls. His other hand carried a blade, short, heavy, and cruel. Every strike cut deep, spraying blood across the broken walls. The girl pressed her hands to her ears, but it did not block out the sound. The monsters screamed and howled, their claws scraping stone, their bodies crashing against each other as they tried to reach him. Yet he did not fall. He did not even slow down. One beast leapt from behind, jaws wide, but the human ducked low, driving his blade upward through its chest. Another clamped onto his arm with jagged teeth, but he slammed it into the ground and snapped its neck with one twist. Blood covered his armor now, some of it his, most of it theirs. Still, he fought. His breath came heavy but steady, his eyes sharp, unbroken. The girl felt something strange. It was not fear anymore, it was awe. This was not just survival, this was war, and the human was a storm. But then, the earth shook. From the far end of the ruins a new sound rose, a roar so deep it rattled her bones. The other monsters froze, their glowing eyes shifting toward the broken wall. The ruins fell silent for a moment after the roar. Dust drifted in the air, broken walls trembling. Even the monsters, wild and bloodthirsty, froze where they stood. Their glowing eyes shifted toward the darkness beyond the shattered street. The girl felt her chest tighten. She had never seen the Alpha, but she had heard the stories. The Alpha was not just a monster. It was the nightmare that led all others. A beast so powerful, entire patrols of soldiers had been wiped out when it appeared. Her people called it the Shadow Fang. They said no weapon could pierce its hide, no fighter could survive its bite. If the Alpha had come, then everything until now had been only a cruel game. Her gaze flicked to the human. His chest was rising and falling, blood covering his armor, wounds burning across his skin. Any ordinary warrior would collapse where he stood, but not him. He tightened his grip on his weapon, lifted his blade again and set his stance. From the far end of the ruins, the Alpha emerged. It was massive, larger than any beast she had imagined. Its body was a mountain of muscle, black fur shining in the pale light. Its claws dug into the stone with every step, carving deep marks into the earth. Its eyes glowed brighter than the others, like burning suns. And when it opened its mouth, rows of teeth glistened with blood from some earlier kill. The girl's breath caught. Her body wanted to crawl away, to disappear. She whispered without thinking, You can't fight that." The human did not answer. He simply stepped forward, placing himself between her and the Alpha, like a wall of iron that refused to fall. The Alpha roared, shaking the night sky, and the pack screamed with it. Dozens of glowing eyes lit up again, encircling them. The girl's heart nearly stopped. They weren't just facing the Alpha, they were facing the entire pack. The Alpha charged. The ground cracked under its weight as it thundered forward. The human didn't flinch. At the last second he rolled aside, his weapon spitting fire. The blasts struck the Alpha's shoulder, burning fur and skin, but the beast barely slowed. With a swipe of its claw, it shattered the wall beside him, stone exploding into dust. The girl screamed as rubble rained down, but the human leapt clear, his blade flashing in the light. He slashed across the Alpha's leg. Blood sprayed, but the wound was shallow. The Alpha howled and swung again. This time the strike caught him, hurling him into a broken pillar. The impact shook the ground. Her heart dropped. He could not get up from that. No one could. But then slowly, the human rose. Dust covered his armor. Blood dripped down his face, but his eyes, those burning human eyes, were still alive. He wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand and spat into the dirt. "Is that all?" he muttered. The Alpha roared again, furious now. The pack began to move, circling tighter, waiting for the command to tear both prey apart. The human knew. He could not fight them all at once. He had to break the Alpha. He rushed forward faster than the girl thought possible. His weapon roared, shot slamming into the Alpha's chest, neck, and face. The beast howled, swiping blindly. The human ducked under its claws, driving his blade deep into its side. The Alpha's blood poured onto the stones. The monster shrieked, anger shaking the ruins. The Alpha lashed out, its massive tail smashing into the human, sending him rolling across the ground. He slid to a stop, his weapon skittering away into the dust. The girl cried out. Without his weapon, he was finished. The Alpha lowered its head, growling deep, saliva dripping from its teeth. It stepped closer, slow and cruel, knowing victory was near. The pack howled in triumph. The girl felt her whole body tremble. Tears stung her eyes. She had been abandoned by her own people, left to die as bait. And now, the only being who had chosen to fight for her was about to be torn apart. It was too much. Her voice broke into a scream. "Get up!" The human lifted, his head at the sound. His eyes locked on hers, and something inside him burned brighter. With a roar of his own, he pushed himself to his feet. His blade glistened in his hand. His voice thundered back at the beast. "I'm not done yet." The alpha charged once more, its jaws wide enough to crush him whole. But the human leapt forward too, faster than the girl's eyes could follow. He slid beneath the monster's body, his blade cutting deep into its stomach. Blood spilled in, rivers. The alpha screamed, spinning around in rage. The girl gasped. For the first time, she saw fear in the eyes of the monsters. They had never seen their alpha wounded. The human rose to his feet again, chest heaving, eyes blazing. He stood tall in the middle of the ruins, his blade dripping red. And in that moment, the girl realized something terrifying. The alpha might have been the leader of monsters. But this human was something greater. He was war itself. The ruins shook with the sound of the alpha's roar. Dust rained from the broken walls, stones cracked beneath its claws. The air stank of blood and rage. The other monsters circled the battlefield, but they did not attack. They waited. They watched. Even they understood. This was no longer a hunt. This was a challenge. The girl pressed her back against a broken pillar, her whole body trembling. Her eyes refused to look away from the two figures standing in the center of the ruins. The towering alpha, its muscles rippling with power, and the lone human, his blade dripping red, his chest rising and falling with fire in his lungs. For a moment, the night was still. The two predators faced each other in silence. The alpha struck first. It lunged, forward like a thunderstorm, claws slicing the air, jaws snapping like steel traps. The human moved just as fast, rolling beneath its strike. His blade flashed, cutting across its chest. The alpha howled, spinning, its tail whipping around with the force of a battering ram. The blow smashed into the human's side, throwing him against a wall so hard the stones shattered. The girl gasped, covering her mouth. He did not move. For a heartbeat, she thought it was over. Then slowly, he rose again. Blood dripped from his lips. His armor was cracked, his ribs bruised, but his eyes burned hotter than ever. He spat into the dust, lifted his blade, and took a step forward. The alpha roared in fury, charging again. The human met it head-on this time. His blade slashed through the air, sparks flying as steel met bone. He ducked beneath its jaws, driving his weapon deep into its throat. The alpha staggered back, blood pouring from the wound. But it was not finished. With terrifying speed, it slammed its claws down, pinning the human to the ground. The earth cracked under the force. Its jaws opened wide, descending toward his face. The girl screamed, "No!" The human strained, muscles burning, pushing against the claws that held him down. His blade was still in his hand, pressed against the beast's neck. Inch by inch, the jaws came closer, hot breath washing over him. For most, this would be the end. But the human's voice growled through gritted teeth. Not yet. With a roar that shook the ruins, he twisted his body, shoving the blade upward with all his strength. The steel ripped through flesh, cutting deep into the alpha's neck. The beast shrieked, jerking back in pain, giving him just enough space to roll free. The human staggered to his feet, gasping, his body trembling from exhaustion. The alpha bled heavily now, its chest rising and falling in ragged fury. It paced in a circle, its glowing eyes fixed on him. The pack howled around them, their voices echoing in the night. The girl could hardly breathe. She had never seen anything like this. The alpha was a monster feared by armies, yet this lone human stood against it, refusing to fall. The alpha struck again, faster than before. The human barely dodged, the claws tearing through his shoulder, spraying blood across the stones. He cried out but did not fall. Instead, he spun with the force, his blade slashing across the beast's face, carving a deep wound over its eye. The alpha roared in agony, blinded on one side. It swung wildly, smashing walls, breaking pillars. The ruins collapsed around them, in clouds of dust. The humans stumbled, coughing, but pressed forward. Their duel became savage, claw against steel, blood against blood. The human's body was covered in wounds, but his strikes never slowed. The alpha's massive frame dripped with blood, but it refused to fall. Every blow shook the earth. Every scream echoed across the dead city. The girl clutched her chest, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to look away, but she could not. This was more than a battle. It was survival against death itself. At last, the alpha lunged in desperation, its jaws wide. The human did not retreat this time. He charged straight into its path. As the jaws snapped shut, he leapt upward, climbing the beast's body with raw strength. His blade sank deep into the side of its neck, and he held on with both hands as the monster thrashed violently, trying to throw him off. The alpha howled, crashing into walls, rolling across the ground, but the human would not let go. With one final roar, he dragged the blade across its throat, cutting deeper until the beast's scream broke into silence. The alpha collapsed with a thunderous crash, its body shaking the ground one last time before it went still. The ruins fell quiet. The girl's eyes widened. She could not move, could not speak. The pack of monsters stared at their fallen leader, their glowing eyes dimming with fear. For the first time, the beasts stepped back. They howled low, uncertain, leaderless. The human stood over the alpha's corpse, his blade dripping with its blood. His body swayed with exhaustion, every wound burning, every breath heavy. Yet his eyes still burned. He lifted his head, glaring at the rest of the pack. "Who's next?" he growled. The monsters froze. None dared move. One by one, they began to retreat, their glowing eyes vanishing into the shadows of the night. The pack scattered, leaving only silence behind. The girl's breath came in shaky bursts. Her heart refused to calm. She had just witnessed the impossible. The alpha was dead. The human had killed it. And in that moment, she understood something terrifying. This was why the galaxy feared humans. Not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, but because one, alone and wounded, could stand against the impossible and win. The ruins were silent at last. The echoes of roars, claws, and thunder had faded into the night. Only the sound of crackling fire and dripping blood remained. The alpha's massive body lay twisted across the broken stones, its glowing eyes dimmed forever. The girl's chest rose and fell in sharp breaths. She could hardly believe what her eyes had seen. Her people had feared this monster for years. Armies had been crushed under its claws. Whole villages had vanished when it prowled. Yet now its corpse lay still, and the one who stood victorious was not an army, not a fleet, not a god. It was a single human. She pushed herself to her knees, her body shaking, her legs weak from hours of terror. Her voice broke into the silence. "You killed it." The human stood over the alpha's body, blood dripping from his blade. His shoulders heaved with every breath, his armor cracked, his skin torn and bruised. He did not answer. He simply pulled his blade free, wiped it against the beast's fur, and turned toward her. His eyes burned like fire in the dark. Not cruel, not soft, just steady, unshaken. The girl felt her chest tighten. She had been abandoned by her own kind, treated as nothing but bait. Yet this stranger, this human, had fought through death itself for her. She could not understand why. Why? Her voice was small, breaking with tears. "Why did you save me? I am not your people, I am nothing." The human stepped closer. For a moment he simply stared at her, his shadow tall against the broken walls. Then at last he spoke. "No one deserves to be left behind." The words struck her harder than the monster's roars. They were simple, yet they carried weight, as if they were carved from something unbreakable. Her eyes blurred. No one in her life had ever spoken like that. Her people left the weak. They sacrificed the helpless. Survival meant abandoning those who could not fight. It was the way of their world. But this human, he was different. The girl's tears spilled freely. She pressed her hands to her face, unable to hold them back. She had been thrown away as nothing. And yet here she was, alive, because one human had refused to let her die. The human crouched beside her, his movements heavy with exhaustion. He reached into a pouch and pulled out a small bandage, rough but clean. Without a word, he wrapped it around the wound on her arm where the wire had cut her. His hands were scarred, his touch firm but careful. She stared at him, speechless. "You can stand?" he asked. His voice was low, calm, as though the battle with the Alpha had been nothing but another night. She swallowed hard and nodded. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself up. The human steadied her, his arm strong despite his own wounds. Around them, the ruins were littered with bodies. The pack had scattered, but their scent lingered in the air. The girl shivered. "They will return." The human glanced at the shadows where the monsters had vanished. His jaw tightened. "Let them." There was no fear in his voice, no hesitation, only resolve. The girl felt something shift inside her. For her whole life, she had been told humans were dangerous, reckless creatures who could not be trusted. But now she understood the truth. Yes, they were dangerous, more dangerous than any monster. But it was not only their strength that made them so. It was their will. Their refusal to bow, their refusal to abandon, their refusal to break. And that, she realized, was what made them unstoppable. She looked at him, her voice trembling but strong. You are not like anyone I have ever known." The human gave a faint smile, almost hidden beneath his scars. "That's what they all say." The girl almost laughed through her tears, but the sound died quickly. Her eyes drifted back to the Alpha's corpse. A thought struck her, terrifying and powerful at once. If one human could do this alone, what would happen if all of humanity came together against the galaxy? Her people had mocked humans. Other races had feared them. But tonight, in the ruins of a dead city, she had seen the truth. Humans were not prey. They were the storm. The girl wiped her tears and stood straighter, her gaze firm. She knew this night would haunt her forever. She also knew it would become a story others would hear, a story that would spread, a story that would change everything. Because when word reached the stars that one human had killed the Alpha of monsters, the galaxy would tremble. The human lifted his blade one last time, resting it across his shoulder. His voice broke the silence. "Come, we have to move. This place won't stay quiet for long." The girl nodded, her step still weak but steadier now. She followed him into the darkness beyond the ruins. Her heart still raced, but not from fear anymore. For the first time, she felt something else. Hope. The night swallowed them both, but the ruins whispered of what had happened. The Alpha was dead. The pack was broken. And in the silence of the dead city, the galaxy's greatest secret grew louder. If one human could do this, what would happen if humanity came for the stars?